Once again, I want to welcome you to Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Dennis Jar, and I want to welcome all of our viewers from across the globe. As part of our discussion for the month of July, discussing more and more about our country, Liberia, we are going to be discussing about Liberian sports, and that includes all sports, specifically soccer or football and basketball. With me to discuss that, I have former Lone Star player, Mr. Benedict Wisseh. Mr. Wisseh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for your kind invitation to have me talk to the Liberian people about Liberian sports, football in particular.
Thank you. And also joining us tonight is Mr. Charles Wordsworth. Mr. Wordsworth, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Mr. John, for having me on your program. On the sidebar, just a little joke. Your team song, both of us, Benedict and I you people, you're playing your Barrow champion.
You see, and I see what Benedict was front of. Okay, let me play something for everybody.
but that's okay. We did get in stride, and I like to do it too.
All right. This one will be for everybody. Okay, that one is Lone Star.
Right,
everybody.
Right. I remember the next time probably we'll have an intermission, I will play the Lone Star forever. Yeah, probably you can hear it too. I need to probably at the end, I need to play the Lone Star forever.
All right. So let's start by again, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight to share with us on Liberian sport. There's so much about Liberia that a lot of us we don't know. And so we dedicate the month of July for us to know a little bit more about what we already know about Liberia. Most of the time when you hear the name Liberia, two things jump to your mind. It was settled by the free slaves, the war, civil war. But there's more to Liberia than those events, than those tragic events of Ebola and civil war. So we want to know a little bit more. So we're going to welcome all our viewers across the globe. We encourage you to share the video and invite more people to watch the show and learn a little bit more about what we know. There are people among us who know a little bit more than the average person. So we once in a while tap into their expertise, into their knowledge to share with all of us. And one of those is Mr. Benedict Wisseh, aka Mama Musa. Mr. Wisseh, I want you to briefly introduce yourself to my audience and the role you play in Liberian sport, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm Liberian, play for Batman, Barrow, and RE. Also play for the national team. I attended and graduated from Charlottesville Memorial Academy in Monrovia, Liberia, the school which unfortunately does not exist. And I'm a graduate of Lincoln University Graduate School of Human Services. I live here in New York with my wife and 3 children.
Thank you so much. Let me go to you, Mr. Charles Wordsworth.
Thank you, Mr. John. My name is Charles Wordsworth. I'm also a Liberian. I went to school, St. Patrick's Elementary School, Cathedral School, St. Patrick's High School, Ricks Institute. I also play on the soccer team for St. Patrick's High School and the basketball team for St. Patrick's High School and Ricks Institute. I played 3 sports at Ricks: basketball, volleyball, and football. I also played on the national basketball team for several years. I was also an official of the Basketball Federation. I worked with the Ministry of Education as a secondary educational planner. I went to Colonial University College, now Colonial University, where I graduated with a degree in secondary education, minor in political science. Also attended the Louis Arthur Graham School of Law. I also have a graduate degree in education and human development with specialization in supervision and human relations from the George Washington University, Washington, D.C. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming to talk about Liberian sport. We're going to start with a brief history, and we're going to cover all sports. Again, I want to welcome all our viewers on behalf of my co-host, Mrs. Danielle knuckles-guishard, who is not here tonight, and also my guest relations manager and product engineer, Stephanie Setro. I want to say thank you so much for coming. Let's start with some history here, Liberian sports. And we're going to cover all sports, and let's see where it comes from. And I want the two of you, this is a roundtable discussion we're having on this Wednesday evening. I want you to feel free, relax, and the two of you, any of you can jump in at any time to buttress what the other person is saying.
Okay, Mr. Jack, but with all due respect, I don't think we have enough time today to cover all sports.
I know.
Because Liberia has a very rich sports history, and there are several sports involved. So I think we'll attempt to cover a few tonight.
Great. And let me start with you.
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
No, let me start with you to go ahead to cover a few of those sports. Okay. Let's talk about, because we don't know, most of the time we are used to or we hear about soccer and basketball. Mm-hmm. But I know there are other sports that Liberians play. So let's talk briefly about them, how they all started.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll talk. Let's give it the actual name. That's the international name, football.
Football. Okay, yeah.
Let's start with football. The Liberian Football Association was founded in 1936 by Mr. John Howard, the eldest brother of Mr. Joseph G. Richards. You know, he went to school in Sierra Leone, and when they came, as I was told, when he came from Sierra Leone, they noticed that they did not have an organized league in Monrovia per se, because at that time most of the people were resident in Monrovia. They did not have an organized league, and they had come from Sierra Leone, where the colonial government had organized sports league. So they decided to form the Liberia Football Association. And there were several guys who were members of that founding committee. There was Mr. Robert I.E. Bright, Mr. Justice Anthony Barclay. He was Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of Liberia. Honorable McKinley A. DeShields Sr., Honorable Lawrence Bayon, Jacob Brown, and Honorable H.Q. Taylor Sr., and several others. But those were the founding members of the Liberia Football Association. In fact, many of these members, including Anthony Barclay, he became the first president of the Liberia Football Association, and Jacob Brown was the first Secretary General. And also McKinley A. DeShields and Lawrence Bayon also served later on as president of the Liberia Football Association. So the league kicked from there. They had a few teams. Some of the original teams they had in the league were Olympics and Bame. Before they were before IE. Later on, they had teams in the league called the Bumpers and Ironside. Ironside was from Clay Ashland, and the guys from Ironside and the guys from the Bumpers in Monrovia decided to join forces to form one team, and that's how they came up with IE. And IE was founded in May of 1943. So, but one of the oldest team actually was Bame. But if you bear with me, Bame was inactive one time for at least 25 years. They had a period of inactivity for 25 years. So IE actually is the oldest continuous sports association in Liberia, next to the LFA, because the LFA was 36. And Barrow came about in 1956. And prior to Barrow, there was a team, they had a team called Beson Star. And Beson Star turned into Barrow Impractical 11, BIE. But I was told, I remember one Mr. Hugh Colley who played on IE during that time, and he wrote a letter during an IE celebration of former players, honoring former players. And in his letter, he said, the IE defeated Beson Star 7 goals to 0 and dissolved Beson Star, and Beson Star turned into Barrow. That's how the story of Barrow. There were several other teams like Mosquitoes, Youth Leaders, and many other teams. And they had a team, Bame had a junior team called by the 11. They were from Claratown. They called it a Grumble team. They kicked them out of the league several times. I think eventually they got expelled for for fighting, beating the referees. You know, there are a lot of stuff. So that's the gist of the and the Football Association go beyond that because they have successive administration that help to promote the sports. And the government formed a National Sports and Athletic Commission. And that commission entails not only football, but basketball, volleyball, track and field, boxing, and other events. So that's the gist of the Football Association. So if you want for us to talk a little bit more on that event, and you have questions, we can elaborate and talk more. But basically, if you look at football in Liberia, we have always had the natural talents. This is so because all the local communities, the different subdivisions, had their own teams, and these teams were supported by the people in the community, not the government. See, and most of these teams, for example, they had teams in Claratown. They had teams in Point 4, New Cruton. There were leagues in Point 4, New Cruton. There were leagues in Mama Point. There were leagues in Fiama Senko. There were leagues in Bassa communities. And there were various teams that sprung up from these various leagues that even eventually joined. And there was a major league in West Point where they had a team like Great Olympics, Polaris, Mighty Black Star, Yellow Butterfly, Barclayville, Invincible United, and other teams. And then it even spread out to Congo Town, Painesville. All these places had teams. Coconut Plantation. If you guys remember Coconut Plantation, they put up a lot of athletes, you know. And one thing we should always take into consideration, football has always been the melting pot. Football has encouraged and promoted, not only football, sports have encouraged and promoted integration. Because through sports, I think for me personally, I tell you, my life has been made better through my association with sports, because I met a lot of people, kind-hearted people, who were dedicated, who were patriotic, and people who are still, you know, who love their country and love their people. You know, so we should try to continue to encourage the promotion of sports all over Liberia. So if there's anything specific you want me to talk about, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Wisseh to add as we continue into the football line. I know there were LFA or the Football Association, but the actual playing of soccer, how did it get started? Who were the people playing at that time? You know,
there were local Liberians that were playing. In fact, through my research, I found that there was even a game between a European team, the local Europeans who resided in Monrovia, against a Liberian team in 1927 called the Young Lions. And the Young Lions defeated the European team. That was in 1927. So there were people playing, just local people playing. People, as I said before, people even play on the beach, you know, playing open spaces. They were playing with even, and not actual, some of them didn't even have actual ball, that they made their own ball, the Ganga ball, you know, the rubber ball. so they will actually play. And then when we talk about different stuff, we'll come to the founding of the Lone Star. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
So if you want that Ben, I give Ben opportunity to elaborate on anything he wants to, and then we can talk about the Lone Star. Probably I will name some of the people who play on the first Lone Star.
Ben?
Well, when you first approached me, Dennis, about this program, I did recommend to you that Charles would be a good guest on this program because of his vast knowledge in about Liberian football. And I did make it clear to you that although I have written some things, some articles about Liberian football and Liberian players, but some of the information that I have been able to use in those articles were provided to me by Charles Wordsworth. So that's what I insisted that he should come on this program. So that aspect of Liberian football history, he specializes in that, and I haven't come across anybody in our Liberian community or Liberian world who is capable of giving us a comprehensive account of that history. So my interest or my obsession with Liberian football and sports also, it deals with the area of the 70s. Yes, so Charles will be able to elaborate more on, will be able to answer your question comprehensively about the players who were reigning at a time that, let's say, during the 20s or the 30s or the 40s.
Let me ask you this. I know we are discussing, well, before the show, that's one of the things. What do you think is the significance of discussing even Liberian sports? You are very much active in the library and you write quite often. Why do you think we need to do this show?
No, I think it is very important because as citizens of Liberia, we are blessed with different talents and responsibilities. We therefore, as citizens, we also, because of those responsibilities, we make different contributions to the national life of Liberia. Um, Athletes in general, whether they are boxers, they are basketball players, football players, lawn tennis, whatever sports it is. We make different contribution to the national life of Liberia. We need sports for us to be able to at least integrate, as Charles mentioned. There were guys, when I played, there were a lot of basketball players who I saw or before I came on the scene who I used to see. But we didn't get to know each other until, we started playing and talking to each other. Yeah, during the Civil War, although the country was on the brink of destruction, but were able to use football, the few games the national team was able to play, to at least keep the name of Liberia alive. So Liberia, sports in general is very important to the national spirits of any country. In the case of Liberia, we have our national exception, which is football. Then you have basketball. We have to, my personal interest in this is that those who were footballers but were not able to or have not been able to the breakthrough in terms of their own personal lives, didn't go far in school. Some of them are falling on hard time. People think that the only those who have been able to serve in government are the only ones whose contribution in our country should be the only ones for us to pay attention to. But I said, no, it shouldn't be that way. Ordinary people, even the men in West Point, the man in Kongota, the poor man, who has been able to raise his children to send them to school, has made a contribution to the national life of Liberia. So it is not just those who play in government, who work in government, are the only ones who have contributed greatly to Liberia's existence.
That's a strong point. Look like Charles want to add to that.
Yeah, I thank you, Ben. Well said. I surely agree, because even if you look at sports, there are a lot of people who made valuable contributions to sports. Ordinary people, they did extraordinary things. People, nobody recognized them, put Liberia on the map. You know, talking about before the construction of the Anthony Tottenham Stadium, football was played on a place called Massacre Field and the Benedict Park. Okay, Massacre Field actually was located between Perry Street and Capitol Bypass in the area just before G.W. Gibson School going south.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, neither Perry Street nor Capitol Bypass existed then. Benedict Park was located in the area bounded by Benson and Warren Street, where CDB King is now today. It is the same area that the YMCA set up its first facilities with the introduction of volleyball, basketball, and table tennis. So you see, games were not always played at the Anthony Tottenham Stadium. The Anthony Tottenham Stadium came way after, in fact, during the administration of President Tottenham. President Barclay first gave that area for recreational activities. The area between the BTC there, the Rallytown Market, that's why we had the merry-go-round, because all the area was given for recreational activities. That's how the Anthony Tottenham Stadium got constructed. So that is just a brief history too of how where the games were played before Anthony Tottenham Stadium.
But where did football come from before reaching to Liberia? Who was the first person that came with that soccer ball to play it?
Well, we don't know, but we can surmise because of Liberia relationship, trading relationship with Europeans counterparts, because and it was always a famous thing for European ships that docked at the port to play Liberian teams, and that started way back in the 30s and 40s. You see, so the interaction probably came from and mind you, that's a good thing too. You remember I told you that when Mr. Howard, John Howard came from Freetown, because he went to school in Freetown. When he came from Freetown, because of the influence playing with the Liberians there, the crews from Cruton Road and stuff. And so his association with those guys, playing with them. He went back to Liberia and established the Liberia Football Association. And even after Mr. Howard's time, in the 50s, in the 60s, Liberians who were born in even Liberia or born in Sierra Leone of Kru parental descent went back to Liberia to play. You know, we had a lot of them. I remember from the time we had Festus George, his brother Waka George, even before, it was before Madam Peters, it was before Vava George, Patrick Thier, Augustus Lawson Thier, all the guys were before them. Then they had the other influence too, the other cool influence from Ghana, from the Gold Coast, where these guys came from the Gold Coast and went to Liberia, who were, in fact, they were actually good players in Ghana. For example, Jackson Weah. Jackson Weah, he played for Accra House of Oath. Wendy Moto, he played for Republicans, Real Republicans, and Hasaka. You know, and then they had Liberia J.D. Daniel, who went to school, who played for Barrow, one time captain of Barrow. He also played, I think he played for, it was a Cape Coast team in Accra too, first division team. So you see the influence too. So we're influenced by people coming from former Liberian, coming from Ghana, Nigeria, and other places. Even the Ivorians came to Liberia, people from Mali, so there were interactions. You know, so we cannot pinpoint who actually took football to Liberia, but I would surmise, I would think it's the British. The British
Yeah.
or the British or the Dutch, because the Dutch had over a longer trading ties with Liberia than the British.
Okay. During the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, a professor at the University of Michigan, whose name has escaped me, he did give an account of how football came to Africa. It was brought to Africa by the British into South Africa, the southern Africa of the continent. And he writes in his book that the British, for them, when they encounter resistance in Africa, they used football because football was embraced by the local African community. So they used football as a form of control over Africans. Even in England itself, football was used in the communities to establish control over the behavior of the poor community. So when the British went to Africa, according to his account, they began to use football because they knew Africans were very enthusiastic about football. And so they used it to establish some form of control over their behavior or to control their resistance against the colonial rule. So during this period, according to his account, you have all these guys, the British from South Africa to West Africa, various countries began to honor their rule, have football leagues. So most of the people who went to Liberia, they came from the Caribbean. And so they arrived in Sierra Leone with knowledge of football. And then when Sonone decided to move to Liberia, they took with them the idea of football.
And you see, even in that early time, I don't know if it's by coincidence that the crew people were playing football more. Why is that?
What I don't know if Charles wants to speak on that, but what happened is that the crew people were nomadic people, or they are nomadic people who move around, from place to place. Even in modern days, up to the time that I left Liberia, you have crew people traveling on the ships, going far away to other countries, staying there for 2-3 months, and then 6 months, and then they come back from country to country. So like my own parents went to Ghana. So when these people were in those countries, their children, the children they had, play football, and when they decided to return to Liberia, they went there and they played there. For example, just talk about one to Jackson, where Jack Domino, William Woodard.
Yeah, that's
many others whose name I can't come up with right now. But those people were born in Ghana, and they returned to the country, and perhaps, not perhaps, but were able to contribute to what football was in the country. So I think that's how the crew people have managed to establish a reputation as, I don't want to say best footballers in Liberia, but at least, they have some influence, a greater number of players.
You see, Ben, interestingly, we're talking about the effect of the people being seafarers on the coast too. Even if we look at music, or look at culture, music, the crew people that want to high life to Ghana, they introduce high life to Ghana. You can check it out too, So it's not of Ghanaian origins, of crew origin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but Mr. John, now coming back to the football, let's talk a little bit about the Football Association.
Yeah.
And I was talking a little bit about the 50s and 60s, and then we can go into then can go up into the 70s.
Yeah.
You see, the Lone Star, actually, the first national team was formed in 1954. And they called them at the time the Probables. And Mr. Lawson, Francis Jackman Lawson, he was the first captain. And then later, they got in 53, they got found out, but actually the team was established in 54 because that's where they made their first international trip to Ivory Coast on an international tournament. And when they played the tournament, they were playing against some guys who were playing in France and stuff, and they lost by 7-2 in Ivory Coast. And the captain, McDonald, I said he scored the goal. And I would name the people who were on the team. I think I have it here with me. The Lone Star football team, 1954. Philip Robinson, McDonald Akolase, Albert Johnson, Francis Jabba Lawson, Anthony Blackjack Dixon, Aloysius Atoka, Bruce Smith, Edward Johnson, Gideon Gidebeku, David Wallow, Peter Shakespeare Doe Williams, Henry Vafley, Sam Elliott, Samuel Hodge, Rupert Brewer, Leonard DeShield, and the coach was Franco Roberts. And from this group now, I think only two people on this group are alive today. I may be wrong, but two. Aloysius Atoka, he lives in Baltimore with his son, and Dr. Rupert Brewer. Dr. Brewer was the goalkeeper. And he's a Liberian first pathologist. He's still alive. I know he's one of my friend's brother.
And they play in 1954, and they are
in 54. In fact, they traveled to Ivory Coast to play in the international tournament, and they lost. And they lost by 7-2 to Ivory Coast. There were several other games they played before then, but actually the team, because this team was these guys, were just coming. The team was just coming into as a national team, but by 1960. Imagine in about 6 years, those guys were somebody to be contended with, because up to 1964, because in 1963, Liberia played the Great Eagle of Nigeria and drew with the Great Eagle of Nigeria. And then we played the Black Star. I wanted to read something. I don't know if we have the time for me to read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. Now, this is an article that was written by the Flamingo magazine, and it was written in 1964, January 18, 1964, and it talks about the Lone Star, Liberia against the Black Star of Ghana. And the title of Flamingo was one of the leading magazines in Africa for culture and sports. And it reads, January 18, 1964 will ever remain in the history of Liberian soccer as the finest hour of the national team. It was the time the Liberian national team, the Lone Star 11, matched its full strength against Ghana national team, the Black Star 11. A much more experienced side, generally accepted as the soccer giants of Mother Africa. The days before the match play in Monrovia and variously described as the match of the year and the match of the century were filled with moments of anxiety. Who will win this match was the question on the lips of all sections of Monrovia's 200,000 population. To many sports writers and commentators, the match was to have been a one-sided game with the superior Ghana team dominating the match from the start to finish and trouncing their opponents by as many as 7 goals to nothing. The Ghana boys, it was claimed, were the current champions of West Africa and Africa and had rarely tasted defeat at the hands of an African team. But the young and virile Lone Star 11 were not at all daunted by the past record of their opponents. They saw in the match a fine opportunity to leave an indelible impression on the minds of soccer fans at home and abroad. They expressed their grit and determination in no uncertain terms. Having held Nigeria national team, the Green Eagles, to a 3-3 draw, the Lone Star were determined to follow up their brilliant performance with a well-deserved victory over the Black Stars of Ghana. To them, the encounter with Ghana was their greatest challenge. The Lone Star, it must be noted, had the enviable record of never having been defeated at home. Jada Williams, the youngest player on the Liberian team, expressing his views on the game, said, quote, if David could kill Goliath, why can't Liberia defeat Ghana, unquote. And he said, quote, I see no difficulty in understanding the Ghana style of play, and we will go all out to undermine their various schemes at scoring on us. He believed the Liberia team had made a great leap forward. The chairman of the Liberian National Football Association, Mr. J.J. Chesson, declared, I think Liberia will win. I am sure Liberia will win. I'm betting on that. Both teams had something at stake. The Black Stars would not like to soil their reputation by succumbing to the Lone Star, while the Lone Star has to reassert their claim of invincibility at home. It was against this background that the two teams met at the Antoinette Tubman Stadium in Monrovia on that bright sunny Saturday afternoon. I was in attendance, 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
The stadium was filled to capacity with a record crowd of about 8,000. And unlike any other match, the spectators streamed into the stadium hours before start of play. Both teams were cheered heartily as they appeared on the field. There were the usual formalities. The national anthems of the two teams were played. The two national flags were hosted by the captains. That was Agrifin and Vani Dempster, Agrifin of Ghana and Vani Dempster. And the players and officials of the match were introduced. At last, the long-awaited moment came. The whistle was blown for the start of play. The Liberian Lone Stars soon plunged into action and made several sporadic inroads into the goalpost of their opponents. One thunderous roll followed another as the Liberian boys displayed their wizardry at dribbling. 10 minutes after start of play, their brilliant performance earned the Lone Star their first goal, which was lobbed into the Black Star net by Marsa, the left winger. Just 3 minutes later, Jackson Wisseh drove another Sputnik shot into the goal of the Black Star and gave Liberia a 2-0 lead. The Black Star looked in great trouble. The odds were against them. They displayed the determination of a corner animal. It took them almost half an hour before they got settled and started putting a semblance of their talk of tactful play. After persistent push into the Liberian goalmouth, Black Star scored its first goal. Just before halftime, Jackson Wisseh of the Liberian team hacked another shot into the Black Star goal and ended the first half at 3-1 in favor of Liberia.
Whoa.
During the interval, a 5-piece band that came with the Ghana team entertained the spectators with catchy high life tunes. When the second half began, the Liberian team seemed to have lost much of their zeal. Their resistance had run out. The Nkrumah boys, as the Black Stars were fondly nicknamed in Liberia, took advantage of the situation. 5 minutes after resumption of play, Edward Aqua, Ghana's goal-getter, made use of an opening with the Liberian defense and chiseled one goal off the Liberian lead. The Black Star kept on pressing. At this time, they looked completely rejuvenated. The shots left flying to the Liberian goal mouth, but David Momo proved too adamant in the goal. He made many brilliant saves and earned the admiration of all the spectators. 15 minutes in the second half, the Black Star, through their captain, Agrifin, netted their equalizer with the score at 3-3. Within another split moment, Ghana's shot was back in the Liberian net, and thus Ghana led by 4-3. Garrison Saka, seemingly infuriated, blast off a shot that prodded straight into Ghana goal like an arrow and set the score at 4-4. This brought back to the Liberian team their hopes that had begun to dwindle. Now the game became balanced. The crowd admired the fine performance of both teams. In the dying minute of the game, Ghana scored its fifth, and the game ended at 5-4 in their favor. Ghana won the match, but Liberia carried the day. Neither was it expected that the Liberians could put up such a defense against the formidable side from Ghana. All the spectators marveled at the performance of the North Star. It was gallantry, stamina, and David Momo that projected the unanticipated image of Liberia to the powerful Black Star as a strong foe to nip in the bud. As the 8,000 elated spectators trampled off the field at the end of play, the name of David Momo was on everyone's lip. Even the director of the Black Star conceded that David Momo was as good as, if not better than, Dudu Ankara, who is known in some quarters as the Magic Hands. The Black Star played with poise, balance, rhythm, and style. But by all standards, there was no doubt that Liberia showed every evidence it had also reached the same pitch of perfection. This is playing against Africa's champion. You tell me, this was 1964. What happened to our programs?
And that game, as I came to Ghana, had some political implications.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the rivalry between President Totma and President Nkrumah. Both men, Dr. Nkrumah was considered to be the leader of the radical wing of African leaders.
Yeah.
And the conservative leadership in Africa was headed by Totma. So for Totman, if at all, because at the time, most African countries were not independent. They were struggling for their independence. Therefore, Nkrumah has some following on the international scene. So for Totman to have defeated Ghana Black Star, which to Nkrumah, because the football program was a flag shape of of Ghana's national pride.
Mm-hmm.
He took it seriously. It was an institution, and it was not just a football team. So for Liberia, for Totman, it was a game that he wanted to win. As far as I know, there is no record that Nkrumah was, not Nkrumah, that Totman was enthusiast of football or was a big supporter of football. So the late Massa, that's how Massa became citizen of Liberia. It took the government 24 hours to give him citizenship, so he will be able to play in that game. So that how important it was, not just to the spectators, but to the two leaders.
As a form of national identity. Wow. So somebody said, G. Michael Cassell said that was the beginning of Liberia Dewell Trophy.
Yeah. In fact, Liberia had a crack team because at that time we even beat Ivory Coast. There was a Brazilian team that called Bom Sissoko. that went to Liberia right after the, I think, Ghana's match. And this team was second to Santos in the Brazilian league. And prior to coming to Liberia, they have beaten Bolivia, Peru, many other South African countries. And then they came to West Africa, they beat Senegal. They went to Liberia and we beat them 3-2, the Lone Star. So you see how far, you see the stretch in between there. And most of the Ivory Coast, we used to beat Ivory Coast, even Gambia, who now has a good team. Oh, we used to get Gambia 7-0, 6-0. And on the Lone Star team, especially with Massa, David Momo, Monkey Brown, Garrison Saka, Wanimoto, Bill Ray, Bubba Gay, they had all these guys. Even Mr. Robinson was still on the team too, Philip Robinson. He was player coach too. They had a lot of people who contributed. In fact, as I said, Mr. Robert I.E. Bright, he was one of the founders of the LFA. He told me once, because his son, my good friend, he told me once that he was the first chief referee of the LFA. You know, because I later did I have any knowledge that these people, you know, they level of involvement. So there was also, people always said, oh, during those times, football were played with people all walk of life. In fact, most of the players that came and played the national team came from the high school league. They were organized high school league. In fact, the Inter-High School Sports Association was founded in 1963. And some of the founders were Brother John Zokloman, Brother Austin from St. Patrick's, Brother Austin Miley, Mr. Howard, David Newer Howard, Frank Pollock, and many others. They founded the Inter-High School Sports Association, and they had organized leagues. And these leagues produced talented people. I remember even BWI. Let's take, for example, BWI, because the competition was between St. Patrick's, CWA, BWI, Memorial College.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for Monrovia College.
Yeah, that was the competition between those schools. And I'm telling you, those schools produced most of the national team players, almost all the national team players, because St. Patrick's, they won championships several times in the 50s too, in the 60s. I remember I was doing one of my research in 1962. St. Patrick was the first school to go and play outside of not only Monrovia, because at that time the furthest they go to play is in the Central Province. The furthest would be Banga or Saniquili, the Central Province. But St. Patrick was the first school to go and play, and the trip was sponsored by the school to play outside of Monrovia. They went to Kipamas to play. And you know how they got there? They got there by sea. Because of the road condition. They went and they played Our Lady of Fatima, Kipama High School, and the Kipama City team. They beat all of them. You know? And then the BWI group, the impact of the BWI group, they had Sam, they had a team that is Sam Burnett, Abu Kamara, got all those top players and stuff came from BWI. A lot of top players who played in the national team. Then Bubba Gay, their group were from MC. Then they had the Roberts brother, Tapper Robert, Dewey Robert. Then they had the St. Patrick group, even the Robert brother. They get the Biggles, the Huge, the Collins, the BT Collins, or Bendino, or Berupa. All the guys from St. Patrick and stuff. So they had, the teams were always fed. So even coming to our time during the 60s, where you had a Bay Ray from St. Patrick, Bay Ray, Alexander P., the Pinko Ladner, Philip Cochard Davis, Simeon David, Francis Nimler, all the guys from St. Patrick, all of them played the national team. You see? So there was like a feeder program. So the league, they had active league. And the people from Firestone too, as I said, they had divisional league. They had organized league in the division. You went to Bongman, they had organized league. You went to Bombing Hills, Mano River, or they had organized league. So, and all of these supplied players for the pool. Then came the county meet. The county meet is not a recent phenomenon. Most people think it just started the other day. The county meet started in the late 50s, I think it was in 1954, when the first academy started. You know, so and there were several sports in the academy. Not only were football, track and field, especially track and field and boxing. Let's look at the different sports association, as I said.
Before you come to that, it look like Ben want to interject something.
All right, Ben.
Yeah. It is not to dispute anything Charles have mentioned, but I wanted to respond to the comment you said. Somebody said about it was the beginning of Liberia did World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes certain comments, when they are made, you wonder what do people look at, to make such comment. I'm sure the gentleman doesn't mean bad, but in this world, you cannot expect to get more out of something when you have not contributed anything. Okay, during that time in the 60s, the football program, the sports program, not just the football, the sports program in Ghana was advanced, far advanced than any other country on the continent. Okay, whether it was football, track and field, boxing, tennis, everything, the infrastructure of those sports were put in place, and they serve as engine that made it necessary for the players to perform well. In Liberia, we have not done anything in terms of supporting and developing, designing the infrastructure of our sport program and moving it forward for it to serve as the engine that makes the national team, football, basketball, and any other sport, for the players to perform well. So yes, did well, yes. I will accept that because the players against who the Black Star play, Liberian players, were just gentlemen or fellow who on their own were able to go to practice. Okay, they were not like the Ghanaian players who lived in compounds, in houses, who anytime they wanted to see the president, they would walk to the Flagstaff house where Nkrumah lived, and they will have an audience with Nkrumah. There are. I remember reading something about Ufun. He said the day that Nkrumah was overthrown, 1966. Okay, he said it was like every member of the Black Star team, every footballer in Ghana, it looks like they have lost somebody in their family. Okay. So if players can feel that about the president of the country, you who haven't done anything for your sport program, why you think that you should do better than those people? So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. And you were, Mr. Wordsworth, when you were naming some of the players, 2 players came to mind that I want you to shed light on. Wani Boto, and somebody asked on your show, Santa Maria. Who is this Wani Boto guy we've been hearing about? Where did he come from? Which team he played for? Even his death, people talk about. What I heard as a child was he came from the hospital bed, jumped straight on the field. Those kind of things. So tell me.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Wani Boto. Okay. Wani Boto was born in Ghana. Okay, in 1942. Okay. Wani Boto he played for Azekes. Okay. Because of him, in 1962 or 63, the National League in Ghana was suspended. Why? Because there was a Ghanaian player named Baba Yara. Baba Yara was considered the best in Africa. Tall, handsome guy. who was a reluctant football player, a reluctant footballer. He wanted to ride horses, but because he was good at playing, they convinced him to play football, but that's not what he wanted to do. But anyway, Baba Yara was a brilliant player. Okay, number one player, number one winger in Africa. But in 1963, Baba Yara, he was playing for Kotoko. What Nkrumah did was to build a team, construct a team called the Republicans, the Great Republicans. And every member of the Republican team, if you want to play against the Republican, you will play against the same player. If you play against a Black Star, you will play against the same players. Okay, so that's how he was building a team. So when Baba Yara left Kotoko, because what they did with the Republicans team was to bring players, the best players from all over the country, from all the teams, to play for Republicans. Wane Boto was a rising star. So they wanted for him to go play for the Republicans. In 1963, Baba Yara was involved in a car accident and he paralyzed from the waist down. That's before the blaster went to Liberia. But Wane Boto couldn't play for the Black Star because his parents were not from Ghana. So what they did was the Republicans wanted to recruit him
He was on the bench,
to play for them.
He was on the bench. He was on the team, on the roster, but he was on the bench. They didn't put him on the team. He was on the roster.
For
Republican.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
No, he was not on the Black Star team.
Well, you asked me why because I had a roster that he didn't. No. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Continue. You do good. Continue.
Okay. So when Hazekas found out that the Republicans, the government was interested in wanted to sign Wane Boto off, they suspended Wane Boto. Okay. The suspension by his team was equivalent to him not playing at all. So they started going back and forward from court to court. People representations from both teams were made. There were debates as to how they could be resolved. So the National League was suspended. So Wane Boto remained under suspension, and then he decided to go to Liberia. So according to what Garrison Sacco told me, okay, in 1964, when the Black Star went to Liberia, Gladstone Ofori, the late Gladstone Ofori, told Garrison Sacco after the game, even though Ofori did not play, but he was on the team. He told Garrison Sacco, according to what Sacco told me, about Wane Boto, that there was a player in Ghana who was very brilliant, but as a player, they wanted for him to succeed Baba Yara. And so Sacco went and told to see Wellington Campbell, who was the director of SSS. Yeah. So it was during that time, according to Mr. Sacco, that Ofori himself expressed interest to remain in Liberia, not to go back to Ghana, because he wanted to make a way to the United States. But he decided to stay in Liberia. So how he went to Ghana, not Ghana, to IE, and then when Wane Boto came to Liberia, they were able to secure Wane Boto from Ghana. And then he played for IE before he went on to Barrow.
Yeah, Garrison told me the same story too, Ben. We got him on video for that. He want to capture him on our video. You must have here myself.
All right, we gotta.
Okay, but you see, during that time too now, let's look at the support of our players. You remember I read something on the thing I just read for Sunday. The player had to play well against Black Star, and Benedict gave you a detailed background about the criminal support of the team. Look at the support of our team. Most of the guys who played during that time, you know who employed them? That have been said become the NISS, Cyril Campbell, the National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, the LNYO, the Secret Service, and the USTC, that United States Trading Company, and the Liberian Development Corporation. They won't employ all the players who were playing the national team then.
Hold on 1 second. We got a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Good evening. My name is Rose Stewart. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Rose,
Great,
welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
So I want to say I'm happy to be able to live in a generation that can see once my professional football, basketball legends, today and hear history. But I want to ask two questions.
Okay.
Liberia, if I can remember, because I'm in my 30s, the mid-30s, and if I can remember, Owner George Weah and his team came out of Liberia becoming professional players. So my question would be, so people that was before him, why did they let the other generation go to waste and never try to have little leagues for the future leaders, which would be us today, apart from George Weah and Saliasai and all the other people? Why did you guys let the other generations go to waste that never played professional football or never became like legend like George Weah?
Okay.
And my next question would be, so that did not happen before. So what are you guys, as one of our, our legends, what are you guys going to do now for the next generation while you guys are still living? What are you guys, have you guys ever thought about impacting Liberia and raising another, raising group of kids or whatever, and to get them to where George Weah got to? Is that a plan you guys have thought about? Or you guys just forgot about everything and say, we're just going to live and whenever it's just going to be like that?
Okay.
So that would be my two questions towards the two legends.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Rose.
you very much. And you have a
Excellent
good day.
questions.
Thank you, and you can
Excellent
take your answer off the line. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right.
Then you,
Who want to take that first?
then you want to go first?
Okay. That question has been put to us. Many times I have had discussions about that with friends and many other people. Players not going to Europe before the arrival of Joshua and the other people, it was not unique only to Liberia. It was something that existed on the entire continent. Yes, few people went to Europe here and there, but at the time, Europe was not open to foreign players. For example, in the European League, okay, up into the 70s, okay, teams in Europe were only allowed to have sometimes two, depending on the country, sometimes only two foreign players on the team, sometimes four, sometimes just one.
Yeah.
Okay, So even some of the great players that we saw in the World Cup from South America, they didn't play in Europe. So, and you got to remember now, the 60s, the 50s to the 60s, there is a time that most of the European colonial powers were withdrawing from Africa. And even though Portugal remained there until 1975, but those countries, they still harbor the philosophy or the psychology of superiority over Africans. In Europe itself, you look at England, where you have the largest Black population in Europe. How many Black guys we saw playing in the first division in England? Okay, they didn't exist until in the mid 70s when people like Lauren Cunningham and Cyril Ridges, broke through. So they were not prepared to take in Black players in their own country, their own citizens. So why would they bother about coming to Africa? The newspapers in Europe didn't cover African games. They didn't cover African league. Okay, the BBC didn't report on African football. But today it's quite different. You have managers, you have coaches, you have scouts rushing to Africa, recruiting players. So the way the difference is, the change of attitude in the psychology of the Europeans to accept Black players, even though they have people like Eusebio in Europe, but he was an exception.
Yeah. And in addition to that, Ben, also even in the 70s, because I know there were only a few players, in fact, for Ghana, like Ibrahim Sunday, who played in the German league. And some of them even faced racism in those leagues. But because it was the exposure, it was not until the European teams, they saw American teams and stuff, started coming playing friendly matches with African teams. They started noticing the actual prospect of the African players. Because I remember in the 70s, Pele team Santos went to Ghana, and they drew. I think they drew with Accra House of Oath and Ashanti Kotoko. So you see the level there. So they started noticing the development of players. This is she asked excellent questions, And the second part of the question, what are we doing to help the kids? Some of us are involved in different organizations here that help youth development in Liberia. For me, I help in basketball and stuff. We have an association called the Great Ball Players Association. We have Friends of the Liberian Basketball Association, to which I'm also a member of, that try to help with the development. We also consult with the NBA and other people to see how we can help the children in Liberia. But the people on the ground have to do their part. We have to have an organized sports program. The government has to call people who are knowledgeable about sports and see how we can all come and sit down and come up with a plan. Because there are a lot of knowledgeable people, sports or people who are former athletes. Some of us are professionals. For me, I'm in the area of education. I'm a teacher. I've taught middle school, high school, tertiary school. I was even a school principal. So you see, we have PhDs and all, former athletes, national players who can help in helping our kids back home and develop them as you will want for us to develop them. But we have to have a plan. We do not have a plan. And it says failure to plan is planning to fail. You see, so we always, as I said before, initially we have always had athletes for our country. Remember, we talk about nobody beating Lone Star in Liberia. Let me give you guys a quick chronology, since we're still on football. A quick chronology of what I wrote in my chronology. I got in my papers chronology for even in the national setting. July 26, 1963, Liberia defeats Ivory Coast 3-2 to win the Golden President Tubman Trophy. Garrison Sacco scored 2 goals. October 1964, Liberia football League champion Invincible 11 defeats Western Rover by 3-1 in a friendly match play at Liberty Stadium in Ibadan, Nigeria, as part of the first anniversary celebrations of Nigeria attainment of a republic status. i.e. 3 goals were scored by Garrison, Saka, Philip Davis, and David Momo. i.e. also defeated an Eastern Nigerian team 1-0 in Nigeria during the visit. Then let's go to 61. The 1966, November 19, 1966, the Lone Star defeats Sierra Leone at home by 2-0 in the final match of Zone C preliminary rounds after a 1-1 draw in Freetown. October 1963, Nigeria forces Lone Star to a 2-2 draw, and Jackson Weah scored both goals for Liberia. In November 1963, Liberia defeats Gambia by 6-0 in Gambia. Jackson Weah scored 3 goals. And that year, Gambia had beaten, that year we beat Gambia 6-0. Gambia had beaten Senegal in Senegal 1-0, drew with Gabon and Upper Volta with Burkina Faso, and lost to France 4-1 in Gambia. And we get that 6-0. So you see, we have always had a talent. It's a matter of the program. So as the caller just asked, what can we do? I think people should impress upon the representative for us to do something, because sports, as I said, has an integrative effect. It fosters integration, you know, and sports teach a lot of life lessons. Discipline, some of the discipline we don't have in our society today in Liberia.
We come from sports.
Yes, it teaches discipline, because I tell you, it teaches patriotism. My association with playing on the national team, the Lone Star basketball team, I saw patriotism at its best. I tell you guys a story. In 1972, a young guy, 16 years old, a member of the national basketball team, we traveled to Accra, Ghana, to take part in the preliminary elimination of the All-Africa game. Because of some infighting between the government officials, there was a delegation of the football team, men and women basketball team, men volleyball team. The government did not give us any per diem. We were told that we were going to be given the per diem upon our arrival in Accra. We were there for actually 10 to 14 days. We never got a dime from the government. Resultingly, Ms. Honorable Cletus Watterson, who was president of the Liberian Basketball Federation, and the late Dr. Amy Woods, who was the doctor to the national team, both of them took the personal money and shared it with members of the delegation. And I remember one night while we were having the closing ceremony, because we live in Legon, where they have the University of Ghana. That's where we all stay, all the athletes. And they were having a closing program in Accra. I will never forget this. And on our, in fact, the buses, because we have 4 buses assigned to the Liberian delegation. And there were 3 of us, one of my late cousins, Andrew Uri, Biman P, and myself. Our buses left us. So the last bus that was leaving, because there were other teams that the Ivorian delegation living there too. The last bus that was leaving, we ran behind and stopped it and asked them to give us a ride. It was the Ivorian football team headed by the captain, the late Laurent Poku. So we got in this bus, the 3 of us. The other 2 guys, my buddy, they went in the back, and I went in the front, right behind Poku. He was sitting by the driver. I was right behind. There was a jump seat. So while going to Accra, these guys asked me. They asked me, how much did the government give you, guys? As per dime. So I told them in the front, I said, the government did not give us anything. And they thought I was lying. So they spoke French to the guys in the back and asked the guy, So the guys in French told them the same thing. So the guys said, they gave us anything, so they must be telling the truth. So we started telling them, the government did not give us anything. I said, we asked them, why you guys asking? They said, man, if they didn't give you anything, the way you guys play, what? If they are giving you something, I know what we're having. So, and that showed patriotism. And the captain, Lawrence Poku, he put his hand in his pocket, took his wallet out, and got his whole team. He put a hat together and started making contributions to give to the three of us. Money and stuff. You know, that shows African solidarity too.
Yeah.
And I was just telling you, that's some of the integrative effect of sports too. You know, African solidarity. I remember when I also played the national team, whenever we went to Africa, there was a doctor there, Dr. Kanga. He was friendly with our team doctor, Dr. Joe Dix. Dr. Kanga is a neurosurgeon. And he was, his first wife was a Liberian. Every time we went there, he would have a party for us. And we invite the Ghanaians, women female team too. And he would tell us about African solidarity, you know, how we should all hold together as Africans, why we need to develop our continent. And we have to fight against colonialism and the forces of colonialism and all that kinds of stuff. So you see, all sports, we guys have all got life lessons. And from us who was former players too, we travel outside of Liberia. The average Liberian population did not go anywhere. Only after during the war and stuff, because they were forced to flee, you know, they traveled and saw other things. But at least we were able to see a lot of things because of our travel and our participation with other countries and other athletes. So it helped the young people, even the guys who play in the high school league. When we play in the high school league, just playing against each other, foster relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Even in the league, the national league, when you play against your friend, even though there's rivalry, but it fosters sportsmanship. That shows that you have to prepare. If you don't prepare, you lose. And you lose, you got to go and regroup. You can't get vexed. Everybody has to work together. You know, one thing I like about sports, if we were doing it in our national life, we'll be all right. Let me say this. You see, in sports, when they go to draw the team, they try to find the best people to play on that team. In Liberia, we always have good players. If you can play, you will play on the team. They're not selecting you on the basis of your tribal affiliation, your social economic status, or anything. And if they select you and they put you guys together from all walks of life, everybody try to play and fight for a common purpose to redeem our country. And that's what we should be doing in our national life. Put the best people in position to make decisions, policy decisions.
Thank you. Our time is fast spent, and if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are focusing tonight on Liberian sports. Our guest, Mr. Benedict Wisseh, a former player of the national team, that is the football team, and Mr. Charles Wordsworth, a former player of the national basketball team. Mr. Wordsworth, let's touch briefly on other sports.
Okay. Now, well, we can go to basketball.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, the Liberian, because you know the first question he asked me, you know, my phone almost died, so I have to hold it down. You asked me about how, I know it will be how did basketball go to Liberia. Liberia, basketball went to Liberia through the Americans. You know, basketball is basketball is an American sport. And basketball went to Liberia through Americans who work with the American embassy and other American companies. And then later on, because I have pictures of early teams like CWA, they had a basketball team. They play against Lebanese team and some other team, American team, and they were in the 50s. But actually, the Basketball Federation, the Liberia Basketball Federation, was organized was founded on April 21st, 1964. And I will just give you a brief of some of the people who were the founders. The founding president was Winston Richards, who was also Liberia's famous architect, and Mr. Al Shuker, he was the vice president. He was the resident manager of LAMCO. He was an expatriate. And then Mr. Stephen Mattis, who was at the time the elected director at CWA. He was secretary. And Mr. David Newell Howard, general secretary of the YMCA of Liberia, he was treasurer. And Frank Pollock, a Peace Corps volunteer who made a lot of contributions to basketball, was chief referee. And then there were the other founding members who was also founder. The other members, William V.S. Tubman Jr., F.C. Loco, the Firestone recreational director, D. Cesar Harris, you guys should know him, or Toiwa Harris' father, Stephen Horton, Oliver Bright, Chancellor Cooper, Mae Thompson, Larry Martin, and some others. And that was how the Basketball Federation was founded. And in that same year, we had but prior to the founding of the Basketball Federation, we had the founding of the Inter-High School Sports Association, because that was where the first basketball league, actual organized basketball league, commenced, starting in 1963. And at that time, they had the rivalry at that time was between SWAN, CWA, St. Patrick's. MC were not in the running then. They were coming, or they were not in the running then. And it was between those schools and Laboratory High School. And the first championship team, the first championship in basketball was actually won by SWAN Industrial Academy. And at the time, during the time of Mr. I don't know if you guys know Ty Harris. He was the captain and the most valuable player in for that tournament during 1963 when they won the championship. Then in 1964, the CWA, the College of West Africa, won the championship. In '65, CWA also won the championship. They had a very, very great team because they had most of the guys on the national team there. Emmanuel Fremont, David Murray, Jim Holler, Bobby Askew. They had a lot of the national team players. They even had the national team, Harold Flemister, the national team coach, Bob Flemister. He was also Jim Manor. He was also a player on that team. And then in '66, St. Patrick's won it in '66, '67. MC won it 68, 69, 70. Tubman High won in '71. I remember St. Patrick was
St. Patrick.
Happy. Yeah, we won it in '72. yeah. And then MC won it, I think, in '73, and '74. No, 73, and 74. Yeah, 75.
Did we play on the international level in basketball?
Oh yes, we did. We had successful teams that played. We played against the African champion, Ivory Coast, West African champion. We have beaten them several times. We have beaten Ghana. We have a team from even team from Cameroon. We play Mali. We have a long history too. Even with teams play, especially against the Ivory Coast. Those guys, they don't know. They couldn't beat us. They found it very difficult, even though they had a chance to beat us. The present Secretary General of FIBA Africa, Dr. Alphonse Billet, he was the captain of the Ivorian team when we played them. He's currently the Secretary General of FIBA Africa. So we have some very, very good competition. In fact, we have beaten Nigeria in Nigeria and Liberia twice. One in Lagos and one in Nigeria in Liberia to qualify for the next round of the African Championship. So the national team have made a lot of progress. And if I had time, I would have named some of the guys who play on the national team. But there's been a big leap, because the sports But what happened at that time, we also had relationship with the American Cultural Foundation, and and through the American Cultural Foundation, we were able to get but actual NBA players to go to Liberia to conduct basketball clinics. For example, in 1963, 64, 65, Casey Jones, Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics, and Tom Masheri from the Golden State Warriors. They all went to Liberia, had scrimmages with Liberian players and conducted clinics. And then during my time, we had David Thompson from the Denver Nuggets, Quinn Buckner, who played and coached for the Boston Celtics. They went to Liberia too during our time. So there was a relationship. So resultantly, at least at that time, the coaching was better because we had good coaches. People were coaching fundamentals, the Peace Corps, volunteers were coaching in the schools, including upcountry. And there also an upcountry league, upcountry tournament that was held annually in Bangabong County. There were some very good coaches up country too, like David River from Zosa, Zosa High School, McGowan from St. Martin, and then they had coaches from the William V.S. Tottenham Methodist School in Bangor, Beaufort High School. So there, Zosa, LTI, Lutheran Training Institute, there was some very, very tough up-country tournaments too.
Let's go briefly to boxing. I understand we have hockey also in Liberia playing the Olympics long back.
Yeah, but boxing, we always had boxers. We had different weight categories. We had the middleweight, the featherweight. I remember our middleweight champion in the 60s, 68, was Snare Sai. He was a middleweight champion. They had a guy called Peter Clay. He was featherweight champion. Nat Jeffrey. They were from a Firestone, serious boxer. Benson Bear, Oscar Brown, Baby Joe Boca. And they had a national coach. He had a nice, I always like his name. His name was Johnny Butterfly. Yeah, and there were, even in the 60s, there were a lot of people who contributed to boxing. For example, like Twan Red. He was one time president of the Boxing Federation. Joshua Pierre, Frederick William, P.D. Gray, and also other people who contributed to boxing, like for example, the Tapla. He was from my buddies then died. He was from West Point. Mr. Tapla. He contributed a whole lot. He even had a soccer team called St. Edward. But you see, in boxing, they had several boxing clubs in Monrovia. I remember. Let me scratch my head. I remember they had the Spartan Boxing Club, the Serene Boxing Club. They had Jibamon Boxing Club. They had Jerome Boxing Club. They had the Firestone Boxing Club, the Bombing Hills Boxing Club, and the Bassa Boxing Club. There were a lot of boxing clubs, and they had boxing too, during boxing days and stuff. And there were people, the people who fought in different weight categories and fought internationally too. In Liberia, we even had wrestlers too. But we talk about sports. The one thing we didn't talk about when we talk about football, people, supporters who really influenced the development of football in the 60s. And I would name two people before we go back to the boxing.
Okay.
Thelma George and Samuel Nathaniel Burnett. Both of them are deceased. Those two people and several others play a major role in the development of football by assisting athletes in their endeavors. So there's anything you want to know about boxing? What else you want to know about?
Did we beat anyone internationally?
Oh yes, in fact, we saw the Sierra Leone contingent. I went to the Anthony Tubman Stadium in the 60s with my dad to watch Liberia champion Poneke, Sierra Leone champion, in various different weight categories too. Yes, those guys will beat people from Ghana too. We have some serious boxers. I will get into my research paper because it's part of my book. I find it and I can give you some exact instances too.
Okay. I
Because
know
of my
tennis,
eh?
golf,
Oh
hockey,
yeah,
track and field.
oh
Just
yeah.
give me 2 minutes each on those.
Okay, in tennis, in track and field, the Liberian Track and Field Federation was founded in the 50s, the early 50s. And since then, Liberia has sent teams to the Olympic. In fact, one of our athletes who went to the Mr. James Robert, he's deceased now, went to the 1956 Olympic. He had world-class speed, but he was disqualified because he ran into somebody at the end. But they had a very good team with the late Mr. Nama. They went to the first Liberian track team to go to the Olympic was the 1956 team that went to the Olympic in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
And they had Nama, James Robert, even Dr. Johnson, Emmanuel Putu, and some other people. They had a Japanese coach too for the national track team. They also had the national tennis stuff. And, you know, one of the champions too, they had Mr. Dr. Amagashi, that was in the 50s, coming down to Mr. Leo Eastman. He was an all-around athlete too. He plays football for IE and played lawn tennis, basketball, all of that. And Mr. Leo Eastman. And then they had also for tennis, Dr. Tipote. Dr. Tipote and the guys from Firestone. In fact, in one of my books I have this guy, Smoker. At age 14, he was a champion for his division in Firestone, called John Smoker. In 1963, he was 14 years old. He won the championship for a youth division. And he was sent to Lebanon on a trip. That it was a tennis trip, too, because of his feet. And there were several other players that came from Firestone, too. You remember I told you Firestone had an organized league because they had several tennis schools all around in the division. And every year they had organized meet in track, in tennis, in boxing, in football, all the different divisions and different part of the entities, the laboratory, the hospitals, they all had teams. So Firestone had, and then table tennis. Don't forget about table tennis. We had Liberian table tennis that won international game against Thailand and other countries in East Asia at international tournaments too. You know, I remember Dr. McKinley A. DeShield Jr. won, the Nigeria came to play Liberia in the 60s. This was BPR 67, 68. And Dr. McKinley A. DeShield won the Nigerian champion in the table tennis match for the Tottenham Golden Trophy. So, and thereafter, Liberia had beaten won a lot of international pennants and stuff, playing in Asia and stuff, the national table tennis team. And we also had the national rugby team too.
Rugby,
yeah, we had the national rugby team where you know, most of the people in Firestone, the expatriates and stuff, play on the national rugby team, and they play against like Sierra Leone, team from Gambia and other places. But again, too, you know, the University of Liberia had a athletic program. Actually, the athletic program started in 1955. And this was done through, they had an American president called Dr. Kermit King. He was a former athlete too, and when he went to Liberia, became president of LU, he was very interested in the sports program because he knows the role sports play in the development of the individual. So he was the first to have a formal organized sports program. And the program, the first, and the former, and he made one of the former holder of the Liberian Tennis Championship, as we're talking about, Dr. Magnus Amagashi. He made him the head of that program in 1955.
I was checking and I saw a hockey team. I think it was in, you see that on the screen.
Yeah.
The ambassador C.T. King, the Liberian ambassador to Nigeria.
Because, you know, again, this is a Sierra Leone influence because I know because my grandmother was a hockey fan and were neighbor to Ambassador King. That was before this picture was before I was born. Then my grandma, they talk about hockey. I mean, the cricket. You know how they dress in white. I used to see people dressing in white. They also had a softball team too that played at the BTC with Liberians and American expatriates, especially Liberians who are come to school in the United States. There was another group of Liberians too that we didn't talk about. Liberians who play college and high school soccer here in America way before soccer got famous and stuff too. That helped to boost the name of Liberia, you know, in the different schools program that they play in. And there were several of them. I have a listing of them too.
Wow. Well, gentlemen, thank you. That's a beautiful history. I know this is just the tip of the iceberg because we have so much ground to cover, but we just want to introduce fellow Liberians to these things because they are not really talked about on the national level. Now we're talking about today. Okay. Benedict, let me start with you as we wind down. Your assessment of sports in Liberia today and how can we improve it? That's the thing I want us to discuss before we close.
Okay.
What there's nothing there about wish to be optimistic, you know, in the development of sports in the country. But I don't want to be the first, or I don't want to jump into any kind of premature conclusion about you know, the inability of the authority there to undertake any kind of initiative, you know, to improve sports. I think, you know, it doesn't have to be the government. It doesn't have to be the government. Private individuals, perhaps the Liberia Football Association, the Liberia Basketball Association, can help to put in place, you know, structures that will help with the development of sports. But as far as sports in Liberia is concerned, no, I don't think we have made any kind of progress. And for the current government, it is too soon, you know, to make any kind of demand. But based on what they have done thus far, almost 2 years now, if not 2 years, no, there's no indication that that we mean business to improve sports.
That sounds like. Before you come to that question, Mr. Wordsworth, someone asked about kickball. You will come to that question, but tell us about kickball.
Oh yeah, the kickball was a major force in the early 60s, and kickball was taken there by Peace Corps and was popularized there was a Peace Corps volunteer who taught at convent, a Black American called Miss Jackson. She popularized kickball there in Liberia, and resultingly they had organized kickball league, and convent actually won a couple of even not only kickball, volleyball too. They had active boys and girls volleyball league, high school volleyball league, active kickball league. So it was very active. And just piggybacking on what Ben said, I tend to agree with him. Our problem has always been we do not have a program. We always want to shoot from the hip, or we want to do things, as the Liberian post said, we want to do things by heart. We have to plan our stuff. You know, if you look at, we don't have adequate facilities. Let's look at basketball. There's not an international regulation-sized gymnasium that we can boast of in Liberia. We need facilities all around. Communities can develop their own facilities too, because if you look at, there are places where they have community centers, and those community centers got their own gym, and those gyms are multi-purpose facilities. They can be used for a wedding, they can be used for religious ceremonies, they can be used for home economics or educational purposes, adult education programs, and all these things. We don't have the facility. And we do not care about our past athletes. We do not take care of our own. Nobody wants to recognize people who have made contributions to Liberia, has been mentioned earlier. The people who didn't work in government but made contributions to Liberia, nobody wants to recognize them. Let me give you guys a case in point. About, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, a young man, his name is J. Addy. He was a member of the Liberian track and field team. In fact, he, along with other members here going to school in the States, with one lady called Dr.nya, she was on the track team too. They organized themselves to represent Liberia at the Olympics and other international track meet to keep the flame of Liberia blazing. I was so proud of them. And thinking about the Olympic spirit, before I finish with JJ, I remember when they had the Olympic in Spain, then, when they had the Olympic in Spain, the war was on in Liberia, and there was nobody to represent Liberia at the Olympics. A friend of mine named Wayne Johnson, who played the Liberia basketball team with me, national team with me, he has a sister. She was not an athlete, and the daughter of the late Dr. Ajibor Johnson. She was not an athlete, but that girl said, even though war is going on in Liberia, the Liberian flag will fly at the Olympics. She paid her own way, went to Spain, and the people gave her credentials and she carried the Liberian flag. When I saw her, I cried on her. Yeah, she did that for her country. And now coming back to J. Addy. Few years ago, J. Addy represented Liberia at the All Africa Games. I think he was here. I don't know where he was here. I don't remember where he was here, but he represented Liberia at the All Africa Games. He won a gold medal in the decathlon, the hardest event in the whole game. Individual event too. That until 100 meter, 200 meter, 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter, javelin, shot put, long jump, high jump, triple jump, all of that, he won. He won a gold medal for Liberia. Nobody prior to that had ever won any international medal. I'm not talking about even zinc, that bronze or so. Nobody.
Not even zinc.
Yeah, that boy won a gold medal. Because you know his mom was my school. His mom was very athletic too, because his mom and I went to school at Richmond together. We had a small. And I was talking to his mom, they didn't give, they promised to give him something, they didn't give him nothing. But that's not my point. My point is the government did not even recognize that boy. Even the people in the legislature, they could have passed a non-bounding resolution recognizing the achievement, the individual achievement, and the national achievement, and putting Liberia on the map by winning the gold medal in the hardest event of the All Africa Games. Where our people, it is not late. I call upon the Minister of Youth and Sports and people who are in charge of youth and sports in the legislature, and so to come together in Liberia and honor this guy or name somewhere after him. Only in Liberia, our people don't care. You know, you guys saw what happened? The other day they had to put a SOS before the government could come in to save one of our former national athlete and coach, Vava George. We have several people who are ill over there. Why can't we do something? Why can't our former players and stuff receive social security too there in Liberia? Or get pension from the government. We need to really do something. Our priorities are wrong. And as I said, as a former athlete, if you put the wrong people on the team, your team will continue to be defeated. Find the right people that will work together. I call upon the minister to organize a national sports conference and call people who are very knowledgeable about sports and former athletes to see how we can put sports together. Because I think if we put sports together, a lot of things will fall in place. Because we need discipline in the community all over. And sports should help to bring some form of sportsmanship.
Okay.
Just
Go ahead.
Dennis, I don't know if we had time.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is our show.
Oh, okay. Uh, just you give the government a credit that the government doesn't deserve regarding Vava Josh.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Okay.
I don't know. I heard. I just heard
Yeah,
probably it was just
it was
innuendo.
private individuals, some other people from here
Thank you.
sending
Thank you,
money.
Ben.
The government has nothing to do
Oh,
with Vava being taken to the hospital.
so sad.
Earlier I said that we all contribute to the national life of Liberia in any ways, ordinary ways, maybe ordinary but most significant ways. Garrison Soccer. I said here, some of the famous players from the other countries when they pass away, they are ministries of youth and sports, they are football associations, they are basketball associations, make it their business to get the news out, whether it is to the BBC, Voice of America, or even their national newspapers. Just imagine Michael Jackson when he died here. Okay, the cabinet, the Liberian cabinet, okay, in a meeting had a moment of silence for Michael Jackson. I don't know what kind of contribution he made to Liberia, but
Liberian
for him,
girl.
okay, okay. But when Garrison Sacco died, no, the government, the Ministry of Youth and Sports did not even release, a proclamation.
John Monkey Brown.
Oh, John Market
Sylvester
Brown.
Weir. Our home was
Okay,
Sylvester. I didn't know.
Mi-
Somebody
mi-
told me, Ben.
Mr. Robertson.
Philip Robinson.
Yes. Okay. I had to write about the passing of these people before even some people got to know that they have passed away. But the Liberian Forward Association, the Liberian Basketball Association, they all sit there and nobody say anything. Even right now, we plan to have a program to honor Coach Josiah Johnson. Okay, we asked the Liberian Minister of Youth and Sports to assist us to secure a visa for Josiah. Okay, a year ahead of time, but he did not. He waited until a week to the program before he informed us that, lied to us that the American embassy at the time last year, around August, was not issuing visa to people living in Liberia. Okay, so we have a long way to go, but if we, there's a common saying in Liberia that, well, if your house do not serve you, or
Yeah, street won't buy you.
The street will not buy you.
yes,
Not buy you.
So we, the former players, okay, it is just not good to occupy the position, okay, and then say that then you pay lip service to what you're supposed to do for for athletes. For me, I'm not saying that the government should provide money for former players, but I'm just saying that during the critical times, in the lives of these people, the government should be able to intervene very swiftly, with a commitment to find solutions to the sufferings of some of the guys. Baba George was promised to be taken to Africos, of all places, Africos. Okay, just imagine I am president, or I am minister, or I am talking a bishop. You think if my uncle is ill, I will send you to Africos? I will not. So Baba has been there. It is more than a year now since that promise was made to him. Okay, the promise was made publicly. So it is very important for us, the former athletes, the former players, to begin to hold our colleagues accountable, to do something. It is not good, it is not enough to just shake somebody and say, oh yeah, this guy was a great legend, he was a great football player, or he was a great basketball player. Reginald Reeves, all those guys, they passed away, and nobody said anything about them.
Yeah, even one of the president of the Football Association, Leonard Deshe, he made a whole lot of contribution. Nothing was mentioned. So
that's why we are so honored to have you legend. We have a caller on the line again. Caller, your name and where you calling from briefly.
Hi, my name is Rochelle, the same girl from.
Okay, you called earlier. Go ahead, Rose, your question or comment. Rose, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to tell the legends, thank you for answering my questions. And those were real good answers. But I would like to say I am in the U.S. and I have a foundation that my mission for my foundation is to collaborate with groups that wants to better Liberia. So if you guys want to get in contact with me, that we can arrange something through my foundation or whatever the case may be, it's very welcoming. You guys can give me a call. And then secondly, I want to say that the YMCA, you won't believe, I don't know when last you guys went back right there, but the YMCA is still the same like when I was a little girl in Convent. It has not changed. And that is one of our biggest basketball place that we go with our friends from school and all those games. And the funny thing was, I had a program there, and before my program, they had all these ministers and playing basketball practices. But it's funny that they don't even see that they need to rebuild that place, But again, I just wanted to, put out there if you guys are planning or the organization wants to do collaboration, I'm open to that. And thank you again. And you guys have a good night.
Yeah, don't go, but give your information to Mr. Ja, and we'll see how we can get to you, because we even got from guys on the ground. A friend of mine, he's a reverend, and he conducts summer camps and stuff for the children. Caleb Duma. If you check it up, we can get that. All of us can collaborate. And she made a point about the YMCA. That's one of our projects.
Rose, please post your number.
We want to fix the floor of the YMCA and the roof. And she's right. Imagine the ministers go there to play on Saturday morning and they see the floor. I went there and no tiles on the floor. So I heard my association want to do something to fix the floor and the roof of the YMCA. Something can be done, because in the past, I remember when I was home, there was one guy, the late Jim Holder, who was a former basketball player. When he went back home, he alone, his own money, he spent his own money to renovate the roof and the gymnasium, paint it and everything. And one of his fellow friends from the YMCA, the late Wilbur Huff, he did all the architectural design. So you see, it can be done. So we won't mind collaborating with you. You can leave your information with Mr. Ja, and then I will forward mine to you. Thank you again, Ms. Rose. That's been very productive. That's what we should do in Liberia. Work together instead of throwing mud at each other.
Yeah. And even in you guys strike a very important point. And I think I've written twice about whatever you focus on will grow. So most of our discussion, even on the on social media, has been all about politics and other issues. Okay, those kind of things receive the highest attendance. They get the highest attention, and they get everything at the detriment of things that are going to build the country. One of which, as we are talking about now, is sports. which from all indication we can see is dying slowly, but all the emphasis and all the money is being thrown behind things that may not take us anywhere. But let me, as we wind down, let me get your final thoughts. I'll start with you again, Ben.
Well, you know, that having been an athlete, former player, you know, I still remain optimistic that that we will do better. But I just hope that we recognize that very quickly, because the resources in the country may not be there to help, you know, accelerate the development of sports in Liberia. But above all, we should be able to appreciate every Liberian, footballers, basketballers, tennis players, even the woman or the man who sells in the street. Okay, we can. It's not a question that we don't have players. We have players, but we are not prepared. We do not undertake the development of sports very seriously. We do not take it very seriously. You know, so that I want to see the government first show appreciation for former players. You know, because those are the things that for any other person, any aspiring athlete in Liberia, you know, will become an inspiration. That yes, this guy is a footballer, you know, but after he retired, there is the respect the government is showing him. That's my area of concern. I just hope that we don't just kick everybody down the curve after, you know, they have done playing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Well said. And I agree with Benedict too in the appreciation for former players and stuff, government. And the only way to do that, we have to have an organized program. Try to at least start with a roster of all the former players, whether they're track and field, boxing, or all. Let us get a roster of all of them. But what I want to suggest, because if you look at the league in Liberia, most of the people when I went home, they're interested in the European League. What I suggest is that the government organizes, not the government, the association, they organize the sports association, probably rejuvenate also the high school sports association, where they can organize the various high school leagues, including track meet, basketball, volleyball, all sports. And also organize the universities league, because that's another place too where we have integration. Those are our future leaders too. They will have to be talking to each other through sports and stuff. We'll find time that people get to know each other. The better you know somebody, the easier it is for you to communicate with that person. So we will need an organized high school league, organized elementary school league, organized high school league, and organized university league. And we have to decentralize sports. Every locality has to have some facility. Imagine if we have stadium, we have let's say reputable stadium in various counties and stuff. Those if they have those stadiums, if they have meets, those meets could help the revenue. They will be revenue generated. They could help the economy of the various localities. For example, let's look at some of these leagues they have there, like the NCAA tournament. Everywhere the NCAA tournament goes to, that local community accrues economic benefit. Yeah. A lot of people come there, the hotels, the restaurants, the food, all of that. People have to spend money. So if we have things in this community, people will go all around the country to those different events, and they will spend money too and improve the economy of those various places. So we should have a real scientific approach to the organization of sports in Liberia. That's my recommendation.
So, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. This is just the beginning. We'll be counting on you for your suggestions and your expertise. We appreciate your time, and we say thanks so much on behalf of all of us. We want to also thank our audience on Facebook for watching, and everyone continue to share the video. And even after here, there will be some people posting comments and asking questions. Please, if you have time, please look on there and respond to some of those comments.
Thank you, Mr. Jaff. Thank you for having Ben. I sent you something, Ben. Did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Have a good evening.
All right.
All right, Mr. Jaff. Will stay in touch and get that young lady information for me.
Okay.
Yeah, because we all have to collaborate. I even found another group that wants to join us too with our renovation project at the YMCA gym. So the more the merrier. All right.